He didn't look at me when he said it. That was the first thing I noticed. He was looking at my daughter. His name was Aiden. Aiden Marsh. He had been in our lives for 2 years and 3 months. And in that time he had learned exactly how to smile at the right moment, how to laugh just loud enough, how to make himself feel like he belonged somewhere before anyone had actually invited him. My daughter's name is Simone. She's 41 years old, and she runs a commercial real estate firm that I built from nothing after her father passed. 3 employees became 19. A single office in Charlotte became 4. I handed her the keys 6 years ago and told her the only thing I'd ever ask is that she never let anyone make her feel small inside something she built. She laughed when I said it. She thought I was being dramatic. She wasn't laughing that Thursday evening. We were sitting at the dinner table in Simone's house in Ballantine, the kind of neighborhood where the grass is always green and the driveways are always clean and everyone waves from their car, but nobody really knows each other. Aiden had been living there for 7 months, which was already 4 months longer than I thought made sense. But Simone was happy, and I had learned a long time ago that my job was not to manage her happiness. My job was to watch. I had been watching Aiden for 2 years. There were small things, the way he referred to Simone's clients as our clients when she wasn't in the room. The way he started answering her work phone if she stepped out for a moment, just briefly, just to help. The way he once corrected her in front of her own office manager about a lease agreement he had no business touching. Simone explained it away each time. He's just enthusiastic. He wants to be involved. He loves what I do. I didn't say anything. I watched. That Thursday, Simone had made pot roast. She makes it the same way I taught her, with the carrots cut thick and the broth seasoned low and slow. The table was set for 3. Aiden was already seated when I arrived, which was not unusual, and he stood and kissed my cheek, which was also not unusual, and I sat across from him and watched my daughter carry dishes in from the kitchen, and I thought, not for the first time, that she always seemed to be carrying something when he was in the room. We had been eating maybe 20 minutes when Aiden set his fork down. He didn't put it all the way down. He held it loosely, the way people do when they want to seem casual about something they've been rehearsing. He said he wanted to talk about the wedding. The wedding was 4 months away, May in Charleston. Simone had been planning it the way she plans everything, carefully, without asking for help, making it look effortless when it was not. He said his parents had some concerns. I watched Simone's hand stop moving. He said his parents felt the guest list was too large. He said they had a vision for something more intimate. He said, and this is the part where I set my own fork down. He said they felt that my presence at the wedding might complicate things. The table was very quiet. I have lived 67 years. I have buried a husband. I have sat across from bank officers who didn't think a black woman from Greensboro had any business asking for a commercial loan. I have had contractors walk past me to talk to my male employees. I have been in rooms where I was not supposed to belong, and I stayed in every single one of them because I had earned my seat and I knew it even when no one else did. I did not say anything. I looked at Aiden, and I thought about all the small things, and I understood, with the particular clarity that comes at a certain age, that this was not about his parents at all. Simone said, "What did you just say?" Her voice was very level. I know that voice. It is the voice she uses right before something becomes irreversible. Aiden said it again, softer this time, with more words around it. Something about optics. Something about his parents being traditional. Something about how I could watch the ceremony on a live stream and they would make sure I had a good angle. A live stream. Simone put her napkin on the table. She didn't push back her chair dramatically. She didn't raise her voice. She stood up the way a person stands up when they have already decided everything and the only thing left to do is say it out loud. She said, "You should go stay somewhere else tonight." Aiden said her name. Just her name, the way men do when they think the name alone will reset things. She said, "I need you to go." He looked at me then, for just a moment. I think he expected me to do something, to soften it, to say, "It's fine, let's all calm down, let's talk about this." That is what I would have done 20 years ago. I would have made it easier for him so that the evening could continue, and the relationship could survive, and everyone could pretend the thing that had just been said had not actually been said. I looked back at him, and I didn't do anything at all. He left. He took his keys and his jacket, and he left, and the door closed, and Simone stood at the window for a long moment, and then she came and sat back down at the table, and we finished eating. She asked me if I was okay. I told her the pot roast was perfect. She laughed just a little, and then she didn't laugh anymore. The next few days were not simple. Aiden called. He texted. He sent a long message through Simone's younger sister, Diane, who relayed it with the careful neutrality of someone who loves both people and doesn't want to choose. Simone read the message and set her phone face down and didn't respond. His parents called too. His mother, Judith, left a voicemail that Simone played for me on speaker. Judith's voice had the quality of someone who is used to being the one who resolves things, who smooths things over, who makes the necessary apologies on behalf of her son, without ever actually making him apologize himself. She said she hoped there had been a misunderstanding. She said her family meant no disrespect. She said Aiden sometimes had trouble expressing himself. Simone deleted the voicemail and made herself a cup of coffee. I drove home that evening thinking about something Aiden had said at a dinner 3 months earlier. Simone had mentioned just in passing that the firm was being approached about a merger. Another company, larger, based in Raleigh. She was considering it the way she considers everything, slowly, from all sides. She hadn't decided anything. Aiden had leaned forward and said, "If you merge, you'd want to restructure the ownership before you do it. Protect the equity." Simone had nodded and said she had a lawyer handling it. Aiden had said, "Right, but family equity is different. You'd want that in both names before the merger goes through." Simone had changed the subject. I had not changed the subject inside my head. I called my attorney on Friday morning. Her name is Phyllis, and she has been handling our family's legal work for 14 years. I asked her to pull the operating agreement for the firm and look at anything that might have changed in the past 24 months. Phyllis called me back on Saturday. She said no documents had been changed. She said the ownership structure was exactly as it had been when Simone took over. She said, however, that she had received 2 calls from someone identifying himself as a future family member, asking about the process of adding a spouse to an LLC. The calls had come 8 months ago. Then again 5 months ago. She had not returned them because she did not recognize the number, and Simone had not authorized anyone to contact her on the firm's behalf. I sat with that for a while. I thought about the way Aiden referred to himself in relation to the firm. I thought about the merger conversation. I thought about the 7 months he had been living in Simone's house, slowly making himself part of the furniture, slowly making himself feel permanent. I thought about the fact that he had told my daughter, at a dinner table, in front of me, that I should watch her wedding on a computer screen. I did not call Simone right away. I thought about what I knew, and what I could prove, and what Simone would need to hear, and how she would need to hear it. I thought about timing. I raised this child. I know how she processes things. She needed to arrive at it herself. My job was not to tell her. My job was to make sure she had everything she needed to see it clearly. On Sunday evening, I drove back to Ballantyne. Aiden was there. I don't know when Simone had let him back in, or whether she had asked him to come, or whether he had simply appeared the way he had a tendency to appear, in the right place at the right time, with the right expression on his face. He was sitting on the couch when I walked in. He stood when he saw me and he said hello in the voice of someone who has decided the best approach is to act as though nothing significant has occurred. I said hello back. Simone was in the kitchen. I could hear her moving around in there. I sat down in the chair across from Aiden and I looked at him and I said, "Tell me about the calls you made to Phyllis Okafor." The expression on his face changed in a way that was very informative. He said he didn't know what I was talking about. I said, 8 months ago and 5 months ago, 2 calls to our family's attorney asking about spousal addition to the LLC. He said it was just research. He said he was trying to understand how things worked because he cared about Simone's future. I said, the merger in Raleigh. Did you make contact with anyone at that firm? He said nothing. I said, I'm not asking to accuse you of anything. I'm asking because I'd like to know what you actually want. Simone came out of the kitchen. She had heard. I don't know how much she had heard. She was standing in the doorway and her face had gone very still in a way I recognized. It is the same stillness she had the day we got the call about her father. The stillness of someone rearranging everything they thought was true. She looked at Aiden. She said, "You called Phyllis." He started to explain. He used the word us several times. He talked about planning ahead and protecting their future and making sure everything was in order. He was very articulate. He had probably rehearsed some version of this for a different conversation, in a different context, where the facts came out differently. Simone let him finish. Then she said, "You told my mother she couldn't come to our wedding." He said that was separate. He said his parents had concerns, and he had just been trying to manage expectations, and it didn't mean anything about how he felt about her family. Simone said, "But you said it anyway." He said, "Yes." She said, "At dinner." To her face. He said he could have handled it better. Simone walked to the front door and opened it. She said, "I need you to take your things and go." He said her name again, just her name, with the same expectation as before. She said, "Aiden, I need you to go." I'm not going to say it again. He looked at me one more time. I think in those final moments, people sometimes look for the person who is least likely to have made a decision and try to find an opening there. I was 67 years old and I had driven 20 minutes to sit in that chair and I had watched him carefully for 2 years. And I had made my decision a long time ago. There was no opening. He picked up his keys from the counter. He gathered what he could carry. The rest he would come back for later, he said. Simone said she would have the rest boxed and left on the porch by Wednesday. He left. The door closed a second time. This time Simone sat down on the couch and put her face in her hands. And I sat next to her, and I didn't say anything for a long time because there was nothing to say that was more important than just being there. After a while, she looked up and said, "How long did you know?" I said, "I suspected." "I didn't know." She said, "Why didn't you tell me?" I said, "Because I knew you would figure it out." She said, "Mom." I said, "I know." She leaned back against the couch cushions and stared at the ceiling, and she said, "He really thought that would work. He thought that because I loved him, I wouldn't see it." I said, "Some people mistake love for blindness." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "What about his parents? You think they put him up to it?" I thought about Judith's voicemail. The smoothed over voice. The careful language about misunderstanding. I said, "I think they raised a man who thought a woman's business was something you married into." Simone made a sound that was not quite a laugh and not quite a cry and was very much both. She called off the engagement the following Tuesday. She made the call herself, privately, without asking me to be there, which is how I knew she was going to be all right. People who need someone else in the room for the hard conversations are not yet ready to have them. Simone has been ready for a long time. I just don't think she always knew it. Judith called again. This time she asked to speak with me directly. I took the call. Judith said she was sorry for how things had been handled. She said she hopes the 2 families could find a way to move forward gracefully. She said Aiden was young and had made mistakes, but he loved Simone genuinely and she hoped that counted for something. I said, I believe he had real feelings for her. Judith sounded relieved. I said, I also believe he called our attorney twice to figure out how to attach himself to her company before the wedding. Both things can be true. Judith was quiet. I said, I wish your family well. I don't think there's anything more to discuss, she said. He could have been part of something wonderful. I said, yes, he could have. I ended the call and stood at my kitchen window for a while. The light was coming in at an angle, the way it does late in the afternoon in November, that long, low light that makes everything look like it's being held gently. I had a cup of tea I hadn't finished. I finished it. The merger in Raleigh went through 4 months later. Phyllis handled it. The ownership structure was updated. Simone's name, my name, Diane's name, which Simone added herself without being asked. The new entity was cleaner, she said, more protected. She had learned things from the whole ordeal, she said, about how people look at a business owned by women and what they think that means about access. She said, I kept thinking about what you told me when you gave me the firm. I said, what's that? She said, don't ever let anyone make you feel small inside something you built. I told her I was proud of her. She said she knew. We had the kind of conversation that doesn't require many words, because the foundation underneath it has been built over 41 years, and it doesn't need explaining. The Charlotte office got a new client last spring, a large one. It was a referral from someone who had heard about the merger and respected how it had been handled. Simone told me about it over the phone, speaking quickly, the way she talks when she's excited, but trying to sound professional. I let her finish. Then I said, your father would be so proud of you. She was quiet for a second. Then she said, I know, Mom. I think about that too. I hung up the phone and sat in my chair by the window, and I thought about everything that had happened in the span of about 6 months, and how much of it came down to one man setting down a fork at a dinner table and thinking he had already decided what my place was. He had not decided anything. We had. I've been thinking about something ever since that Thursday evening at the dinner table. Not about Aiden, specifically. More about the kind of thinking that leads a person to do what he did. He was not stupid. That's the thing people sometimes miss when a situation like this resolves itself the way ours did. They assume the person who lost must have been careless, obvious, easy to catch. Aiden was none of those things. He was patient. He was warm when warmth was needed. He learned how to read a room. He had been working on this, quietly, for 2 years. That takes a particular kind of intelligence, but intelligence without integrity is just a more sophisticated way of causing damage. I've watched it my whole life. I've seen it in business, in families, in people who climb by, stepping on whoever happens to be standing nearest. The smarter they are, the longer it takes for the cracks to show. But the cracks always show, every single time. What Aiden miscalculated was not Simone's love for me. He actually read that correctly. He knew how close we are. What he miscalculated was what that closeness is made of. He thought it was sentiment. He thought it was the ordinary tenderness between a mother and a daughter, the kind that softens people, the kind you can work around if you're careful enough. He did not understand that what Simone and I have was built the same way the firm was built, through hard years, honest conversations, and choosing each other when choosing was not easy. You cannot manipulate something that was built on truth. You can only reveal yourself trying. Simone told me later that she had felt something was off for months. She couldn't name it. She kept explaining it away because she loved him, and because she wanted to believe that what she felt for him was enough of a foundation. That is not weakness. That is being human. Love asks us to extend trust before we have proof, and most of the time that is exactly right. The trouble comes when we extend it past what the evidence can hold. The moment he said what he said about me at that table, something snapped into place for her. not because of me specifically, because of what it revealed about him. The audacity of it, the casualness, the assumption that she would simply absorb it and move forward. That told her everything she needed to know about the next 40 years. I think about the firm too, about what might have happened if Simone had not been the kind of woman she is. If she had been someone who needed a partner's name on the paperwork to feel secure. If she had been someone who measured her worth by who stood beside her, rather than what she had built with her own hands. Aiden was counting on a version of my daughter that does not exist. He had constructed her in his mind. A woman who loved deeply and therefore could be led, and he was wrong about her in the most fundamental way. A person can be wrong about another person. She knew who she was. That was always going to be the thing that undid him. I don't carry anger about any of it. I did for a while. The particular anger of a mother who watched someone try to take something from her child. But it passed. What replaced it was something quieter and more durable, a kind of certainty, the certainty that the choices we make, the small ones and the large ones, accumulate into something. They become the life we actually live. Aiden made his choices. Simone made hers. I made mine. The life we ended up with. The three of us. Simone, her sister Diane, and me, feels earned in a way that is worth more than anything Aiden was trying to get his hands on. You can't buy into that. You can't marry into it. You have to build it, slowly, honestly, over time. That's the only way anything real ever gets made.